Hey everyone, welcome to the Marriage Mistakes Experts podcast by Reverence Restored, where we share real and raw stories and practical tips to help your marriage thrive, not just survive.
We are your hosts, Kevin and Bree Bailey. Let's go get them. Welcome back. We're here for episode 2, and we can't wait to share with you guys a fun topic today that has the ability to change the way that you do marriage, relationships, and really anything that has to do with other people.
Every single day.
Every aspect of your life. So today we're talking about communication and expectations, how those apply to specifically marriage and relationships, but you'll hear a little bit about that overlap as well.
Should we model how we communicate when we're trying to communicate?
So what are your expectations for this? How do you want this to work out? No, for real. But we're going to jump right into it today because for us, really it is about communicating extremely well, and we want to set really clear expectations when we're jumping into any part of our marriage. We missed this for so many years.
So many years, it caused a ton of heartache, a ton of arguments, just unnecessary hurt and pain, leading to so much bitterness over just not communicating well. We do it all day long, but are we doing it well? And are we doing it well with each other, with our spouse, with the most important relationship on earth?
Yeah, there was a quote that you've said a couple times recently. What is that?
I heard it from Craig Rochelle. He was quoting someone else.
I think it was Jordan Montgomery, wasn't it?
I can't remember, but it said the problem with communication is the illusion that it's happening.
Yeah.
Gosh, isn't that true? We have conversations in our own minds sometimes with our friends, with our kids, with coworkers, and then we sometimes miss it when we're trying to communicate with our spouse, and we kind of lose sight of, shouldn't you already know what I'm talking about?
Right.
Shouldn't you be able to read my mind? Truth is, we can't.
We can't. So the best thing we can do is share what's on our mind with our spouse, whether that's just communicating in general, but most importantly, it's the expectations. What's our desire?
Yeah.
What are we hoping to gain out of this? How is this going to make us better so that we can make sure we're either meeting those or exceeding those expectations? And
before we communicate really well and exceed in the great big decisions that we're making, it has to be every single day.
Yeah, it starts in the little things, right?
Yep.
Small wins equal big victories.
I love it.
We knew we had a problem in this area. Once we started to reconcile and we start trying to figure out how are we going to put this marriage back together, how are we going to do marriage differently? We want it to look different than it has in the past. We want to improve. And it came down to having some great people around us talking about we've got to relearn how to communicate with one another and share our expectations. Because how many times have we come home from work, all of a sudden I would start sharing a story with you, and what's the first thing that happens?
I would interrupt and want to give you my opinion.
Share a solution, right?
Yep.
Tell me what you're thinking. Same thing would apply for me. As soon as you start sharing a story, all of a sudden, what am I doing? I'm trying to provide a solution. Well, have you thought about this? So that's one area for us where we've learned, okay, there's a practical solution to this, and we're going to share it with you guys as well. There's 3 main areas we're going to talk about that take place in each one of our marriages, each one of our relationships, every single day. So to your point earlier, you're going to get lots of chances to fail this test and pass this test. Number 1, spending time with one another. One of the areas where we receive so much feedback is how do you spend time with one another and not get on one another's nerves?
Yeah.
Whether it be distractions from phones, things going on in our lives, how do you guys spend time together and enjoy that time together? It hasn't always been easy.
Right.
We really struggled in this area for a long time.
Yeah, we messed it up. We really hurt each other by just, I don't know, the effort was there that we wanted to spend time together, but the idea and what we were going to do and how all that worked out wasn't communicated.
Right.
And we just ended up building up annoyances with each other, really, and then not spending time together. And it just drives that wedge. Yeah,
you get frustrated and you're like, it's not worth it. It's easier for me to spend time with other people than it is for me to spend time with my spouse because I'm just frustrated when I'm with them. And I feel like I have to share everything with them, but yet I don't know how. And when I do, it doesn't come across the right way. So there's a communication gap and there's an expectation gap that need to be filled. So we're going to talk about quality time with one another, communicating on how to communicate.
Yeah.
Now, that sounds a little bit strange, right? However, it's really important to know before we communicate, what's the expectations? What are we trying to communicate? And how do we want to communicate? And how do we receive communication so that we can grow together?
So much communication.
It is, but it's easy. It doesn't have to be hard. And we're going to share that with you. And then last but not least, we love spending time together. We want to know how to communicate when we are together so that we can enjoy the time together. But then we're also going to go out into the world and we're going to live. So when we're with other people, how do we stay in communication and have really clear expectations when we're not with one another so that when we come back and hang out with one another, there's no friction?
Right. And this could be within our workplace every day,
Yep.
40-hour work week, what that looks like communicating when we're busy or occupied at work, but still honoring our spouse. And also when we go out and when we're with friends, there's times that we have events or time with our girlfriends where I might go to dinner or something like that. And for years, it was so difficult because we didn't communicate well and we just didn't have anything put in place, to be honest.
Yeah. And so we're really, when you think about this in the scope of marriage, most divorces happen in years 1 through 2 and years 7 and 8. So at this younger state, we get older, and there are a lot of divorces happening at the later stages in life right now. The average years is up to 19.9 years, and that's because there's a lot of baby boomers that are deciding to part ways. Kids are out of the house. We're just, you know what? It didn't work out. Let's go our separate ways.
Yeah.
However, when we think back to our earlier years of marriage, putting these into place at the early stages of your marriage are really going to help build that foundation for the long haul.
Yes.
Because a lot of the areas and the stories that we're going to share with each one of these really were to the people that we were 5 or 10 years ago, probably closer to 10 to 15 years ago. Time flies. Number one, quality time. We love spending time with one another.
Yeah.
And we got an opportunity to go through a love and respect class 4 or 5 years ago. Shortly after we started to reconcile, we decided we're going to jump in and learn as much as we can about making our marriage strong. And this is one of the courses that we jumped into, love and respect. When we were sitting in that class, that previous day, we had an encounter about quality time. Do you want to share that?
You want to hear it?
Let's do it.
It was the day before. It was a Saturday. We were hanging around. Didn't really have a lot of things going on. You were working in the garage and you asked if I wanted to go to Lowe's to make a return. Do you remember?
I do.
And I originally was like, no, I hate Lowe's. I don't really want to go to Lowe's. You asked me again. And when we went, we pulled up into the parking lot and I really had no desire to go in. I thought it was going to be a quick return. You go inside, I'll stay in the car. When I told you that, I remember you looked at me like, what the heck are you thinking? We're here together.
Fire eyes, baby.
Come on. And I was like, you go ahead and go in, I'll stay in the car. You slammed the door and went in, and I sat there so convicted thinking, holy moly, he wants to hang out with me. He invited me to come. What am I doing? Sitting in the car on my phone scrolling. This is ridiculous. I tried to call you. We were already starting to get on each other's nerves at that point with one situation.
Yep.
And you didn't answer. And I thought, crap, I have to go inside. And so I went inside, chased you down. I ended up finding you and really just asking for forgiveness for disappointing you in this way when you really just wanted to spend time with me. And I was just being stubborn, hanging out on my own.
So much in that story, right? When we think about and peel those layers back, that's what we try to do, is we try to peel the layers back and say, where did this thing go wrong? How did we miss it? And what do we have to do to make sure that we've got stop gaps in place that prevent us from missing it again next time?
Right.
And so even as I'm hearing that story this time, the 7th, 8th, 15th time that you and I have shared that, there's still things that I'm like, man, I could have done this differently. But it really is a result of bad communication, not clearly defined expectations that resulted in unmet expectations. So of course there's a responsibility on my part to not slam the door, not give you fire eyes, answer the phone when you call rather than side click it, all of those things. That's secondary pieces. But the root cause of this was, hey, I didn't clearly define why I wanted to spend time with you, what my expectations were for that time. So clearly spelling those out puts you in a position to win. It looks different for men and women when we spend time with one another. That's shoulder to shoulder time for me. We're hanging out in the truck. We're going to Lowe's. 2 of your favorite things to do with me, of course, but maybe not so much. However, it's quality time to me. And women have the way that they look at quality time is a little bit different.
Yeah. I think you say it best when it's like men want that shoulder to shoulder. They can be sitting at a bar.
Right. That's why a
Yeah.
bar is bar stools. They're shoulder to shoulder for that
Yes.
exact reason.
And sitting at a table and watching the game or whatever, you're hanging out with each other. You're not necessarily communicating very deeply.
For sure not.
But it's quality time, and that's what you guys are there for. Women, on the other hand, typically like to face each other.
Face to
Face
face.
to face. Have that quality time where I'm really engaging and I want to hear my friend's heart. I want her to hear my heart. I want to talk about all the things that we haven't had a chance to catch up on. And that's a different idea. Men and women are created differently.
Right.
We think differently and we experience that joy and communication differently.
Yeah.
It's important to know that.
It is. That's really the communication piece that leading up to that, we didn't know that at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's saying, you know what? I just really enjoy spending time with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're going to run to Lowe's and it's not your favorite thing to do. However, can we just maybe jump in the truck together? We're going to run there. Would it be cool if we kept our phones out of the way and we just were able to talk and connect on a few things?
Mm-hmm.
And it may take a few minutes to warm up because is this a safe place? Can I have these types of conversations? Whether we're talking about finances or if we're talking about intimacy, it's an opportunity for us to hang out and for us to start to develop this relationship because proximity matters.
It does.
So we want to spend time with our spouse, but we have unmet expectations and we're not great at communicating of what that looks like, knowing that there's differences in how we spend that time together.
What was so cool about having that class the next day was we were going through this exercise together in front of our friends. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to confess in front of everyone and share how this little story really impacted and really set our day kind of off just a little bit. I mean, we got it back together pretty quickly inside Lowe's, but it was such a typical thing that I think happens to a lot of couples, whether it's just you're missing each other or you're just not hearing each other. The communication is important, and setting those expectations from the get-go is crucial.
It is. And if you're going to spend time with somebody, you've got to learn how to communicate with them.
Mm-hmm.
So number 2 is really learning how to communication.
Yes.
Right? That's really challenging because men and women communicate differently.
So differently. We're created differently.
Yeah.
And we are different usually in how we think, how we see things, and how we communicate.
Men are more like waffles, right? There's a book out there called Women's Minds Are Like Spaghetti and Men's Are Waffles, something along those lines. Yeah. But really that's the reality of it, right? Mm-hmm. Women's minds, you get a group of women together and it's amazing what they can do. The way that conversation can go of, oh, Rachel's did this. Rachel, she's got these shoes and her, have you seen her daughter? She is so gorgeous. She's off at Arizona and she's doing these things. It's amazing. She's an influencer. It's unbelievable right now. Oh, the bags that she has, they're beautiful. Have you talked to her lately? Oh, have her grandmothers. I mean, you guys can just, you can go and everybody's following, everybody's understanding it. You're all in rhythm with one another. It's just this beautiful thing. Dudes are over here like, what? Shoes, bags, Arizona, influencer? Who's under the influence? I mean, we have no idea.
It's true. We have this long string of spaghetti.
Yep.
And it's all wound up in our mind. We can connect all the dots because every piece touches each other. And men just think differently. But that really has an effect on how we communicate with each other. I'm a woman, you're a man. When we want to share something, it's tempting to either want to solve the issue right away, or we just interrupt in general, giving our opinion.
And that's really what this is. So we've put into place this simple yet extremely practical application that we hijacked from somebody else. One of our mentors or coaches shared it with us. And it's as easy as this. Do you want me to solve this or do you just want me to listen? That has saved us so much heartache. And if we had known this when we first got married, imagine the chaos we could have avoided out of so many different conversations.
I think of all the conversations every time that I wanted to share my heart, whether it was me just kind of rambling and I just wanted to share, just talk to you. We're in proximity now. I just want to share with you how my day was, what happened. I so often would be telling you stories and you as a guy would want to solve it. And it was really difficult for me then to open up the next time and want to tell you a story and not get frustrated. But your heart was in the right place. You wanted to provide a solution. I wasn't necessarily looking for a solution with that particular story. And if we don't communicate that, you have no idea. I can't expect you to be reading my mind.
Right.
Although, wouldn't that be fun?
That would, for about 3 seconds, I would enjoy that. But it's the reality of it. And the same thing would apply for men.
Mm-hmm.
It takes us a while before we can start sharing our emotions with our spouse. So if we're going to go on this journey to open up our heart and share it, we want to know that it's in a safe place and that all of a sudden we're not going to start getting told what we should have done differently in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So when we preface it with, I just have some stuff I want to share with you. I'm not looking for feedback, because there's a couple different ways that you can do this. It can be, hey, do you want a solution or do you want feedback? I can start the conversation with saying, I'm not looking for feedback right now. I just have a couple things I want to share with you.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do that, we're letting the other person clearly know, I'm not looking for a response. I'm just going to share some stuff with you. Maybe hold on to it and let's get back together at a later date and we'll talk about it. Now that I've shared something with you, maybe you can give it some thought, and I'd like to get your feedback after you've taken some time to discern it, digest it, whatever's going on in your mind. Because ultimately what we don't want to do is just shut that other person off all of the time.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to create more havoc in your relationship, start to drive that wedge in between you guys, and you're just not going to communicate effectively with one another.
No, and what I hear you saying is those times where you don't want a solution, it's not saying that my opinion doesn't matter, that what I have to offer might not be valuable. You're just saying, I just want to share my heart with you. Just please listen. Just be a sounding board. Just be present.
Yeah.
And I missed that for a lot of years, and it really did shut you down. It
Yeah.
shut you down. It made you not want to open up the next time. And then I'm sitting here wondering, why doesn't he ever talk to me? Why doesn't he ever share his heart? Because, woman, you shut him down time after time before.
Yeah. And before we can even get to the heart, we're going to start sharing things like finances and things that have happened at work, our lives. It's not, most men aren't going to go directly to, hey, here's all my emotions. I would love to share them with all of you. Like, here's everything I'm thinking and all of my insecurities, how crappy I feel at times, the depression that I face, the anxiety that I face. Oh my gosh, I'm worried about this. Are we going to be able to make the mortgage? We're not going to share those things with our spouse right away. It's going to start in the small details, and how our spouse responds.
That's good.
Is going to set us up for success to talk about the big things. Small wins equal big victories, right? So we want to get really good at this in the small things, the boring details, before we're going to move into the really big decisions.
Yep. Spot on.
So we're hanging out with one another. We're having a blast. We're learning how to talk with one another, because it's so important for us to be able to have these great conversations, to communicate, to set expectations. Before we jump to the next one, I think another one with this is date night. When we have a plan for a date night, there's a lot of expectations that need to be discussed before we go do that.
Yes.
Because it looks different for guys and girls, especially when kids get into the mix and it's been a minute since you've had one, depending on what the date is, depending on lifestyles. There's a lot of different elements to this that you really want to make sure you set clear expectations leading up to a date night. As far as even what we're going to wear, are we dressing up? Is it just a chill night? What do those look like? If there's the cadence, the frequency, all of that. I think it's really important for married couples to know that there's different expectations for husbands and wives when it relates to date night.
Yeah, I remember a couple of date nights when we had encouragement to start putting that date night into place. It was like, okay, it was such a big deal to be able to get the babysitter, to get a night that we both didn't have anything. And it does take work. And so here we were putting in the effort to have a date night. And then when we were on the date night, we would be on our phones, or we would just be distracted. And we weren't even giving each other that attention because we didn't have the expectation. But then we weren't communicating. And it's okay to go to a movie for a date night, or it's okay to do things with, that isn't this drawn out conversation every single time. But when there needs to be the expectation that's set, and then the other person needs to receive it and say, okay, all right, let's have this as a plan. And then you just go forward and you make it happen.
Right. And putting that extra level of attention to it, that you just mentioned a lot of great things. Most of the time, the female is going to get the babysitter, and acknowledging that with your spouse, communicating that with your spouse, letting them know, I really appreciate you getting a babysitter so that we could go out and do this tonight, so that we could have fun, so we could go to this function, so that we could do these things. And then just having expectations around it, being able to communicate those, knowing what time we're going to end the date night, what it looks like.
Yeah.
All of those things are really good pieces of information that you might think the other person knows and they're on the same page as you. But how many times does a date night end up in a fight?
Yes.
And we don't want that for you. We don't want that for us. So we want to communicate really effectively around what the expectations are regarding a date night or a date day or a date moment, whatever it looks like for you in your certain situation.
Yeah, and as we're talking about this, it can maybe sound like there's so much work to put into it. And it does seem like that sometimes, but once you get in those healthy rhythms and you communicate and you both know what you're both kind of responsible for in leading up to it, then it does make it more easy and it becomes more natural.
Yeah. Yeah, because for us, we're at a spot now, which we still blow this at times. But even when we go to the gym, we talk about, okay, what time are we leaving? And are we going to stick around and do mobility? Shout out to our CrossFit coach here, that mobility, nutrition, all the fun stuff. Are we going to stick around and do a little bit of extra work? And we talk about that so that we know when we can expect to leave, because both people should know, okay, here's our plan. It's just really good communication.
It's good. It's all those little details.
You're going to win in the small places.
Yep.
But we're not always going to be together.
Yep.
So we want to know how to communicate when we are together. We want to spend a lot of our time together, but there's going to be times when we step out into the world and we're not going to be with one another, whether it's with girlfriends for you, guy friends with me, going to work, work functions, work events, all of those things that happen in our life. We want to be able to communicate what the plan is and what the expectations are so that when we come back together, we don't have another fight.
Yeah. So when you're away from each other, you don't have to mess it up so badly that when you get home, it's exhausting because you're going to talk about it. You just prep it out in the very beginning. And this could even be with kids' activities. We have a kiddo who travels out of state sometimes for some of those activities. And if we don't have an expectation to even check in with each other, let you know when I get there, check in. It might be busy, just simple text here and there. But if we don't know that the other person is desiring that, then there can be hurt and frustration there. So there's so many levels to this, but specifically for this topic, I think we're going to talk about just if we go out with our friends.
When we're out with our friends, it's important for us to have a good communication plan. There's 3 P's that we put into place with this. You want to know the place, you want to know the people, and you want to know what the plan is. If we know those 3 things, because for guys, it may come across as jealousy, but typically what it is, and in some cases it probably is jealousy, because our girls get all dolled up for the night with their girlfriends and we're like, dang, you just wore your sweatpants when we went out on a date, or your black yoga pants, and look at this fine looking dress you got on, girl. Legs are showing, all the good stuff. And you're going out with you're going out with your girls, man. Do you want to go out afterwards maybe? But we have this there's unmet expectations with this. So our spouse goes out with some girlfriends and we want to know the place that they're at, the people that they're with, and the plan. The reason is because we care about them. I care about you. I care about your safety. When I'm with you, I can protect you. When I'm not, I can't. Does that mean I'm going to live in fear? No, absolutely not. But if we've made a plan and you've told me that you're going to be home at a certain time and you're not, I've got a decision to make now. Do I need to be worried about her? Especially, okay, so the first step is I'm going to call, but guess what? Girls are talking.
Yeah, my phone's going to be on silent probably.
Yeah, probably on silent. I'm not going to hear it. Or I may choose to decline it in some cases, and that's another issue that people have. But for the sake of this conversation, we're just not seeing that it's been called. So again, we've got a decision to make. Do we call a friend? Hey, I know Bree's with you right now. Can you ever call me quick? Now we've got 2 people in a little bit of a panic.
Yeah.
That person and our spouse going, why would you do that? Why would you call them? Well, because I thought you were going to be home. I'm so sorry. I just care about you.
Yeah.
And because we didn't clearly define what the plan was.
Yeah. And this is an area where I'm continually growing in because I'm at a stage where I don't get together with my girlfriends very frequently.
Yeah.
And so when we do, it normally goes longer than we planned. Not on purpose. My intention is never to tell you that I'm going to be home in a couple hours and that it's like double the time. But I just have to be really mindful with that. For example, I can invite a friend to help me be accountable.
Yeah.
And that way I'm showing honor to you in that sense.
Yeah. When you invite other people in, it's going to look entirely different. And you're really setting the tone. So you took that to a whole nother level very quickly. That was awesome. So you're getting 2 for 1 here with this one, but inviting accountability in with your friends, that's kind of the messaging piece that goes with it. When you message that, it is important. So when you're setting the place, you're setting the people, and you're setting the plan with your spouse, you're doing that to show honor to them. And the way we communicate that with the people that we're with really starts to show, man, these people really care about their marriage.
Yes.
Especially if you didn't get it right for a lot of years. And that same group of friends saw the chaos and the turmoil that caused in your marriage. And all of a sudden you're saying, you know what? I'm going to honor my spouse. I've got to be out of here at 4:00. So I've got a hard stop at 4:00. Can you guys just help remind me of when it's getting close to 4:00? Because maybe I don't do the best job of keeping track of time. So I just need a little bit of help with that. Yeah, that's great, man. We're going to make sure that you're taken care of. I think for a lot of guys, at least from our story, I'm going to speak directly about our past. If I would go golfing or if I would be at a work function, I was busy.
Yeah.
I was unavailable. You couldn't get a hold of me. And that was kind of the rule I made. Sorry, hey, I'm busy, man. I'm doing work stuff. Like, leave me alone. I'm busy. Here's the plan. I'm going to be golfing and I'm going to be at work. And I'm just not communicating well in that scenario. You didn't want to be a nag. You didn't want to come across as like, I'm controlling. That's not who you are. And our spouses typically aren't that way. If they are, there's some hurt there. There's some pain from the past, some stuff that we've got to unwrap. And you're going to be able to do that when you start with this type of a mentality of communicating really well and setting expectations, because you're going to have a chance for both of you to communicate back and forth. So let's not go down the path of controlling. It's simply you care and you want to know what I'm up to and you want to know when I'm going to be home because you care about my safety too.
Yes.
Especially if we've got a history of maybe drinking too much, hanging out with the wrong group of friends, making bad decisions. Trust is given, mistrust is earned. And we just can't go out and go do our own things. And really a lot of friend issues come out of what happens when we're with those friends. The way we respond when we're back with those friends and how we respond to our spouse. So if all of a sudden I'm like, hey, I'm going out with these dudes that I used to hang out with 10 years ago, you're gonna be like, whoa, pump the brakes, bro.
What are you doing? Where are you going to be? What's
When are you going to be home? Are you available? I don't know. Well, I'll call you. Just call me. That's not good. That's not setting good expectations leading up to an event that has the ability to really change your marriage.
You're right. And it does set the fear and anxiety. There were nights, whether it was during the day or in a night event, where there was such poor communication. And then it did lead to me, just what you said, being controlling, calling. I mean, 10, 15 times until you could actually hear your phone and have a spot that you could answer. And then I'm mad at that point. I'm mad. The fight's going to happen. It's going to be a long night. And we did that for a lot of years because we didn't communicate on the front end.
And most of those arguments would end with, maybe we should just get divorced. This probably isn't going to work out. We're not good at communicating with one another. That's not true. We just didn't know how. These practical applications can help save and change your marriage. So for the couple that's out there right now, or the person that's considering a relationship, these are really simple ways to communicate with our spouse or our significant other or the person that we're dating. But it doesn't just have to be in a relationship. It can be in any form of communication. We do this with our kids. We want to get down on their level and we want to talk to them. We want to hear what they have to say. And sometimes that means we got to draw it out of them a little bit.
Right. I want to know how our kids' day was when they come home from school. I want to know, who they talked to, what the day was like, if they have any homework. And a lot of times it is skewed because they are just getting home and they want to be on their electronics. They're not looking at me. They're saying, yeah. And then Mama Bear comes out where I'm like, oh no, put the phone down.
Pump the brakes, time out.
Put the iPad down. Oh, I'll take it away. And it just goes down.
Internet paused.
Oh, it's so frustrating. But what is it? It's that eye-to-eye contact. It's really showing someone that I want to talk to you. It doesn't have to be a 10-minute conversation, okay?
Right.
It just needs to be
That's so good.
To the point, and giving each other that honor and that respect, and then go about the rest of the afternoon.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be long. And the cool thing about that is when we do that, most of the time, our kids start telling us more than what we expected, right?
It's so true. They open up.
They open up.
They want to hear.
Like, whoa, you really do care? Like, you do want to know. Yeah, I want to know. And that's really about the way that we respond. Because if all of a sudden we start responding, they're like, Well, hey, Jimmy said this to me today. Jimmy said what to you today? Did you tell the teacher about that? I'm going to go there. I'm going to meet them there tomorrow. We'll take care of this problem. Did you let the principal know?
And then what's their response? Mom,
Yeah.
Dad, no, everything's fine. They do the eye roll.
Don't embarrass me.
Yes. And really, that's just a lack on our part. We're the more mature ones. We can take the time and say, okay, just listen, because I want them to keep coming back for years and years.
Yeah.
Even when they're out of the house, I want them to come back to the safe spot.
Yeah.
And be able to share, but I have to button it up.
Whether it's with kids or our spouse, if we're quiet and we're not communicating well with our spouse, we've got an opportunity. One, we need to humble ourselves and we need to say, please forgive me for not listening to you when you've tried to talk to me about things that are important to you. And please forgive me for trying to provide a solution when you didn't want a solution and you just wanted a sounding board. And that's a real simple step that can have the difference of whether or not your marriage is going to continue to last or if it could potentially be the end. So for the couples out there that are in this situation right now, we just pray that you could just grab this information, apply it to your marriage, and start making a difference. These are steps that we use in our own marriage. So you're getting an inside view to what we use to keep this beautiful woman smiling happy every single day and making sure that our marriage is shored up. We're going to make it across the finish line sprinting, not just trudging along.
Yes, no time for limping along.
Right. Yeah. So share this with anybody that's going to benefit from it. Give us feedback, like it, and thank you so much for your support.